to another episode of Two Guys on a Mic. I am Scott, joined by my brother Mike over here. As you can tell by my background, I am not at home. I am actually currently in Denver. I forgot to bring a football hat, so I guess I'm just going to rock the baseball hat here for this one. But actually, some Braves notes. They traded for Jared Kilnick. That's freaking huge. But we'll get to that when it's baseball season. But if you're a Braves fan, you got to be excited for that. So, Mike, let's start this week off. I don't want to talk about the 49ers Philadelphia game yet. I actually want to talk about something that happened in the middle of the game because this is something I think needs to be talked about. The Dre Greenlaw and the security guard is known as Big Dom. They had a security guard over there in Philadelphia. Obviously, everyone knows they got into wasn't even a scuffle. Dom put his hands on Greenlaw's chest, pushed him away, and obviously Greenlaw, put his hands in his face, clipped his chin a little bit. I don't agree with the ejection of Greenlaw, only because Dom, a security guard, a non-player personnel, not a coach, not anything. He's just there on the sideline to protect the players in case someone tries to jump over the fence, whatever it is, onto the field, whatever. He's not supposed to be where he was at. So the fact that you have a guy on the sideline that's not supposed to be there, trying to break up a fight.
Not so much not supposed to be on the sideline. He wasn't supposed to be that close to the field.
Yeah, but here's my thing. After this happened and Dre Greenlaw got kind of, got ejected, dude, this is going to have to be stopped immediately by the NFL. Reason being is because what's going to stop NFL teams from putting people on the sidelines? I mean, how many plays do you see on the sidelines?
A lot.
That can go over there, just put their hands on the players. Maybe something happens, more players are ejected. The NFL is going to really have to dig into this, and they're going to have to do something kind of serious about this because the fact that we lost such a huge piece of the defense in Greenlaw, that could have really turned the game around, especially you got the crowd all back into it and whatever. Yep. I think it was BS that Greenlaw was ejected. If anything, I understand the 15-yard penalty roughing on Devontae Smith, but the personnel, the security guard should have been the one that should have been removed only, and that should have been the end of it. The fact that they removed Greenlaw after the hands were put on him first, I think was I think this is just something that, it doesn't really happen. I guess the refs just went with what they felt was right. I don't know call from New York because, they did talk to New York about this. But yeah,
NFL is looking into it. It came out today that the NFL is investigating the whole incident. But right here, the NFL, straight out of the NFL's rule book, Section 1, Article 8 states, non-player personnel of a club, equipment personnel, coaches, trainers, equipment personnel, excluded are those people. So non-player personnel of a club are prohibited from making unnecessary physical contact with or directing abusive, threatening, or insulting language or gestures at opponents, game officials, or representatives of the league.
Yeah, so actually, if anything, I wonder if there's a penalty set for that. If anything, the Greenlaw, penalty on Smith for unnecessary roughness, a penalty should have been called on, Philadelphia, I guess, for something. Did you remember years ago when there was that incident with the coaching staff, the guy that tripped the player that was running down the side on I think it was a punt return? Again, the NFL is going to have to really figure out how close they're going to let some of this personnel get to the sidelines. I think they might want to consider moving everyone non-player back at least 6 feet off the white hash. Only head coaches, defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators. Those three should be the only ones that should be allowed within that 6 feet. Because I think also
equipment managers as well, because they have to be able to get the balls out during changes.
Yes. But yeah, they should definitely limit how close people can be. Now, I understand that can make substitution a little bit harder. They have an extra 6 feet to run on and off the field. But I think this does start to
I just think there's too many people on the sideline, because then you also have, don't forget, you have the officials. You have the chain gang. You have all the camera and photography people. You had the guy, a member of the chain gang, that got run into by Kamara, broke his leg.
Dude, that was nasty. His
It
leg.
was. It was. I mean, it was an unfortunate situation, but what would have happened if that would have been Big Dom or whatever his name was?
Yeah,
He
well,
gets rolled into and breaks and broken leg.
well, that can even
Greenlaw's
happen
gonna
to a player or a coach,
Greenlaw's gonna get fined for
as he
sure,
should.
as he should. I get it, but the penalties need to come out and they need to be even. Philadelphia can't get away without anything being happened as far as being penalized or anything like that.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. Something should have been canceled out with that as far as that going on, but we're gonna probably end up reporting on this report again Thursday, so we'll see what the outcome is. But as of right now, I believe at least the Eagles. I don't think the gentleman should lose his job. I mean, he's doing it. I mean, clearly he's probably always that close to the sidelines.
Yeah.
But he probably needs to be suspended some games. Like, I don't know if Philadelphia has a upcoming home game. I don't know if they're home this week or
Well,
whatever.
how do you suspend him because he is a part of their security?
Well, obviously they have other people that high up on the ranks for security.
But here's the thing: he's not a member of the team. So what does suspending him really do?
Have you ever heard of people going home without pay from a regular job?
Won't happen.
Well, I mean, something needs to happen. The guy has to be punished also in a way because you can't interfere with the NFL game like this. Like I said, that Greenlaw being taken out had way more, implications on the game than a random security guard.
Well, and I don't think that they were initially going to eject him either. Not Greenlaw, but the security guy.
Yeah, no.
Until Shanahan just went completely apeshit on the other side at the refs.
Yeah. So it is what it is. But let's go ahead and let's jump into this game. Now, anyone who's been watching the 49ers for the last 3 weeks and attention to the Eagles for the last 3 weeks should have known that this was going to end up being the outcome of the game. I'm not saying the 49ers are, way ahead of the Eagles as far as talent-wise. But, I mean, the 49ers coming off a 10-day rest. They played Thanksgiving. The Eagles had to play in overtime against Buffalo Bills. Their defense was on the field forever. And that game showed it. The first quarter was like, I was like, what the hell is going on? I didn't like the play calling, I didn't like anything. The defense came out with energy. And it almost felt like after the first 49ers scoring drive, it was like the defense lost all their energy. It was like, I think they were just going based off crowd, the hype of the game. But after that first quarter, I think of going so hard, they just didn't have a lot left in the tank. They have a lot of injuries on that defense. Up front, their starting four is great, but they don't have a lot behind them. Their linebackers are just they're not good. It's not a good linebacker core right now. And on top of that, their secondary is been getting lit up. If Eagles are really honestly lucky to be 10-2. If you go back and you look at this, Gabe Davis against Buffalo, they should have lost in overtime. Gabe Davis, ran the out route and he should have ran the in route. That would have been game over right there. They would have lost to the Bills. You got Dak stepping out like the half-yard line.
Yeah.
They should have lost at home to Dallas. And let's be real, they should have lost to Kansas City. Scantling had that drop on that bomb. Those are 3 games the Eagles are extremely lucky.
They'd be 7-5 right now.
Yeah, they very much could be. They should be happy that they are 10-2 right now. If I'm also the Eagles, I'm a little bit nervous because their home field is supposed to be their safety blanket. It's supposed to be impossible to go into Philadelphia and beat them. And the Niners went in there and they made it look like a damn home game. And that can't happen. I understand you can still lose, but to lose by that much at home in such an important game, I don't care if they're healthy the next time they play. This score and just the way the Niners scored and the way they just beat up with that defense with 6 straight driving touchdowns.
And they were long drives. They weren't They weren't short. They were 70, 80, 90-yard drives. Their shortest drive was 55 yards.
Yeah, and some of those were only a couple. They only needed a couple plays. That the
Yeah.
Eagles were not tackling very well either. I mean, McCaffrey he was getting a lot of yards after contact. The yak yards for the receivers, especially Debo, was extremely high. There was pretty much after that first quarter, there was just I felt like, okay, the Niners held Philadelphia to those 2 field goals, which I will say also I think was extremely important because you were looking going into the second quarter 6-0 and with 2 3 and outs instead of being down 14-0 and having back-to-back 3 and outs. The game could have had to be called a lot different by Shanahan. There could have been
That there is a huge difference there when you're chasing 2 possessions versus 1 possession, and 1 possession gets you the lead at that point.
Yeah. So I think the Eagles are going to be fine on offense. That offense always has the opportunity to explode. But here's my problem: it's the defense. So last year the Phillies defense was 8th. They're now ranked 24th. They're actually dead last in third down defense. They are ranked 32nd.
I think they're last in passing defense too, aren't they?
No, they're not. They're not. They're starting to get there though. But here's the thing: the Niners had like -5 yards after the first quarter.
I think it was -6 or something like that. Yeah.
That means in 3 quarters they went for 456 yards and 42 points in Philly. Like,
well, you take out the first quarter. What was the score? 42-13.
Yeah, 42-13. I mean, that's a beatdown, and I think everyone wants to talk about the Niners having that 3-game skid, and I'm not gonna make excuses for those losses. They lost the games. It is what it is. In fact, Cincinnati kicked the shit out of the Niners. I don't care what anyone says about the injuries, but as of right now, when Debo and Trent Williams are in the lineup this year, the Niners are 9-0, and they have scored 30 points or more in 8 of the 9 games. And the one game they didn't score 30 points in, they scored 27. Okay, so health moving forward to Trent Williams and Debo Samuel is going to be extremely important because both of those guys carry such high significance in the way that the offense is ran. I mean, think about how much we ran behind Trent Williams. Like, a lot. Everything is pushed on the run game. We rely so much on Trent Williams to do his thing, and also the pass protecting. It's going to hold up. It doesn't matter who the other team sticks on that side. You don't have to worry about Purdy getting hit from behind, which is a huge factor. So another thing, Hurts ended up throwing for like 298 yards. 100 yards of those came in the fourth quarter when the Niners were kind of just letting them complete passes, trying to keep them in bounds.
Garbage time.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, that Hurts had a terrible game. I mean, just terrible. Yeah, he had a couple touchdowns, no turnovers, but you really didn't do much when you had your opportunity. You couldn't score in the red zone at the beginning of the game, too. You were 2 of 4 in the red zone. And when you play the 49ers, you have to convert those red zones. You cannot. You can't settle for field goals or you are going to lose. So it's going to be real interesting next week to see how Philadelphia does traveling for such an important game against the Cowboys. As beat up as they are on defense, as exhausted as they are, and with how close it was between them the first time, and with how good Dallas is playing right now, I have Dallas winning that game, and I have the Eagles dropping down spicy. Now the Eagles' schedule's a cakewalk after this, and Dallas isn't. Even if Dallas beats them, I do see Dallas losing at least one more game during the season. I think they're going to go into playoffs with 4 losses and unfortunately be the 5 seed because I think Philadelphia will stay with 3 losses and they may not even lose to Dallas.
If Dallas goes in as the 5 seed, look who they're playing week 1. You're playing the winner of the NFC South.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's not a sure thing, but that would be the easiest of your first round matchups.
Yeah. So,
But
that,
the flip side of that, they're going to have a much tougher game round 2.
yeah. So with that said, I kind of want to go into the whole the MVP race. Now I think it's Vegas, right? Vegas is the one that is putting the beds, right? Now Vegas has
Yeah, because what I had was from ESPN or ESPN Bet.
Yeah. So Purdy's actually now the front runner, as he should be. I understand a lot of people say Dak should be the MVP, and I did say that last week. I said MVP. Dak right now I felt was the front runner as MVP, but now Purdy has beat both Dak and Hurts. His two top competitions is they're both tied for the second as far as MVP, odds. He's beaten both of them head to head, put 42 both of
Yeah,
them.
I was gonna say they put 42 points on each one of them.
But here's the thing about Purdy. Okay, so I got a few stats. A lot of people say like, hey, he has these receivers that get huge gains after the catch. His stats are padded because of yak yards. I have a nice little stat for you. Purdy right now, his total yards is 48.2%. Okay, come after the catch. All right. These are the last 5 MVP winners, quarterbacks. Okay, Mahomes, his yak percentage 54%. Rodgers, his back-to-back years over 52%. Lamar Jackson has the lowest at 43%, and then Mahomes at 51%. So out of the last 5 MVPs, he has the second lowest yak yards. What he does have is the second highest air yards, which basically means that's how far he's throwing the ball and then they're catching it. So he's second in the league in that. He's first in passer rating at 116. He's first in yards per pass, 9.6. He's first in completion percentage at 70.2. He's first in TD percentage at 6.9. He is tied for second with 4 3+ TD games, and he's tied for second with 20+ yard completions with 53 of them. Okay, I don't give a shit who he has on his team. Okay, he still has Jimmy Garoppolo had almost the same exact team around him, and he wasn't doing none of that shit. In fact, his yak yards was actually 54% during his career with the 49ers. So you can say what you want as far as what's surrounding him, but he's doing what needs to be done, and he's doing it against good teams. I mean, come on. Let's look at Dak's schedule and Purdy's schedule.
Well,
They're not even comparison.
Purdy
Purdy's
combined.
Huh?
Purdy combined against Dallas and Philadelphia, 566 yards, 8 touchdowns, 0 turnovers.
Yeah, and let's not forget he also beat Trevor Lawrence over there. In Jacksonville, coming off of those 3 losses where everyone was like, well, who is this guy? He went into Jacksonville with all that pressure and put up 34 points on him. I mean, all right.
Purdy's rating against Dallas, 144.4. His rating yesterday against the Eagles,
it was like 148, wasn't it?
It was 148.8.
Yeah. So we'll see if that sticks around. Purdy has another really tough game Christmas Day against the Ravens. And that defense has actually given up 2 less points than the Niners defense. They basically have scored the same amount of points and given up the same amount of points. That to me, if I were to pick 2 teams that were going to go to the Super Bowl right this second, I would pick the Ravens and I would pick San Francisco to be making the Super Bowl. So you got anything else you can add to this game?
Yeah, so the other team you're talking about was when they played Jacksonville. Purdy, 296, 3 touchdowns, 0 turnovers, and a 148.9.
Yeah, he's done it against good teams. You got anything else? I know I pretty much talked that whole segment. My bad. Didn't even give you a chance to chime in. But
no, one other thing. If you watch that game, Lane Johnson jumping
Oh
basically
yeah,
every single play.
yeah, I did.
On the flip side of that, though, the way that they could have exposed that is you start having, and it was Bosa that was against him pretty much the entire game. You start having Bosa move on as soon as that leg moves, because then if he is jumping, the refs are going to call it.
No, because if you watch it, so I actually watched a video today on it. Someone was talking about it, and his timing is so good. Like he's just, I mean, half a second faster than the football, but it's all such one motion, and so many tackles are doing it now
Yeah,
that
you see it all across the league.
yeah, you do. And if the refs are letting everyone else do it, you can't call that last night or yesterday. But at the same time, I think the league's going to need to figure this out as far as all these tackles, getting that quick jump stop. And one other thing too, I'm sure most people know now, Roger Goodell has said he's looking at banning the tush push.
Yeah.
I'm just going to assume that you're just not going to be allowed to be pushed from behind. The quarterback sneak obviously is not going to go anywhere, but you're not going to be allowed to be pushed from behind. I mean, dude, if you
they
think
line up
about,
with what, 2 people behind him pushing him?
well, think about it like this: on that touchdown tush push, he got into the end zone. He was like 4 yards deep on that thing.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if they were to affect the tush push so good that they could get 4 yards every time
Every
they?
play.
It would literally be. It would literally. You could literally sit there and just only run that play, and no one would be able to stop it.
Yeah, you'd have 12 yards, 11,
So
12 yards in 3 plays.
yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what Goodell does on that and how he's going to ban it. I'm just going to assume that it's going to be you can't push from behind. You can still quarterback sneak as long as the quarterback's doing the work, but you can't set someone up behind him and push the quarterback forward. I'm sure they're not going to do away with running backs once they go forward or whatever. You can push from behind them, so we might see some new techniques in the way that they
Well,
do.
I'm surprised with how much they're wanting to protect the quarterback too. You're having the quarterback in there; he's between all those linemen and 2 dudes pushing him from behind. Like, I don't want to say anything. Oh, you're going to get injured doing it, but I think there's a much higher probability of somebody getting injured, somebody rolling up on a leg or an ankle or something during that, because it's just a giant pile.
Well, it happened to Tank Dell, which I was going to get into is there were some key guys hurt for teams that are in looking like they're probably going to be in the playoff or in the playoff hunt. So Tank Dell, dude, he fractured his fibula.
Out for the season.
Yeah, that's huge loss for Houston. But at the same time, like he was in the middle of that pile. He's only 5'10", like 170 pounds.
You got 300 almost. You got 350, 360-pound guys dropping on you.
Yeah, his skinny legs are not going to be able to handle that weight. But I mean, good for him for trying to do his part. But maybe on the red zone when you're going to be doing a run call like that, maybe don't put Dell and Christian Watson hurt his hammy. I didn't look into it as far as how severe that is, but if they lose Christian Watson, with Green Bay on this run, that's going to be a significant loss. That's going to be huge. Derek Carr obviously is in concussion protocol.
No, he's not.
No, he's not.
Per Mike Vrabel, he's not in concussion protocol.
I'm talking about Derrick Henry. I'm talking about Derek Carr.
Oh, Carr. I thought you said Henry.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I did read that too because I was going to put him on the list, but they said that he did not sustain a concussion. Kenny Pickett is expected to miss Thursday. No surprise there. Who cares?
He had surgery.
Oh, so he's done, huh?
I saw the update earlier that he was having surgery. Keep going. I'll find it right now.
Yeah, Kansas City actually got hit with probably the worst of all the injuries. You have offensive tackle Donovan Smith hurt his neck, linebacker Drew Tranquil concussion, and their safety Brian Cook hurt his ankle. All 3 of those. If all 3 of those guys miss in the way that Kansas City is playing, like obviously Kansas City is going to make the playoffs, but I'm actually kind of concerned for that team because I understand the whole PI that Green Bay should have been called for a PI at the end of that game. Did you see that replay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you talking about The 2-hand shove behind Kelsey in the end zone?
No,
Or
I'm talking about
are you talking about the one where the player was over the top of the back?
the one where he
There was
was
both
like
of them they could have called.
he like jumped in his arms and was like having the receiver carry him.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah, but I will say this: I don't know if that was a makeup call for the bullshit roughing the passer, or not roughing the passer, but the unnecessary roughness call that was called on that Patrick Mahomes hit on the sideline. You
Yeah.
see, the NFL refs really need to start getting this right. If the rule states if the quarterback leaves the pocket, he is a runner. You cannot protect him if he is not on the white. He's free game. Mahomes had not touched the white. I mean, his foot wasn't even over the line heading to the white. He was still full. Both feet were still in green. The guy hit him with the shoulder. I thought it was a great clean hit. NFL really needs to start talking about what they, as far as like, they need to talk to the rest and be like, dude, you guys are getting a little bit carried away with some of these calls that on the quarterbacks.
Well,
Like,
I will say I'm glad they didn't call an unnecessary roughness hit late in the game on that Niners Eagles game when Swift got the shit laid out of him.
no, dude, that was completely.
It was a text, like they said, it was a textbook hit. But it
Yeah.
just seems like anytime you see a hit that hard, they're throwing a flag.
See, and here's the thing that I'm concerned about. What's going to stop these quarterbacks from acting like they're going to run out of bounds, and they're running, the defense is going to slow down because he's not going to want to get a penalty, and the quarterback just cut back in.
Like what Kenny Pickett did in college, the fake slide.
Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, what is going to stop them from eventually starting to do that? So the NFL, I understand wanting to protect the quarterback, but at the same time, let's not overdo it. It's still football at the end of the day. Okay. So
going back to the Pickett injury. So he had successful tightrope surgery to address a right high ankle sprain. He's already ruled out week 14. They're saying that he's expected to avoid injury reserve, but they're saying he's still going to have a tough time gaining clearance for the week 15 game against Indianapolis. And it's up in the air after that.
Yeah, and bad timing because they're right there in the thick of the playoff race. So not a good time.
Other injury that happened tonight was T-Law.
Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about that.
Ankle sprain, they're saying.
Does it look severe?
They didn't say what the severity of it is. You also had Puka had an AC sprain.
Yeah, but he ended up finishing the game. He came back in and finished the game.
No, he's expected to play week 14, but that's just gonna be a pain management. The other thing, Pacheco, what did he get ejected for?
Oh, he threw a punch.
So see what's gonna happen come down the pipeline with him.
Nah, he'll get fined and he'll be out there. Okay, so I want to talk about some playoff scenarios. Actually, you know what? Wait, before we get into that, I did watch the Broncos-Texans game. Fantastic game, very entertaining. Russell Wilson had his opportunity. There's something about that guy in the 2-yard line that he cannot score, but they had the opportunity. They should have beaten the Texans. They really should have, and they got down there and on the Texans for holding them. He ended up throwing that pick. But and that was a huge opportunity for Dallas. I mean, for Denver, because that would have actually really put them in the playoff race. As of now, they got the Chargers.
I called Houston winning that game too.
You did. At Chargers, at Lions, home against the Pats, home against the Chargers, at Raiders. Raiders have been playing really good. You can't just assume that that's going to be a win now. Raiders did beat them week 1 as well. So we're going to find out if they can make it. But let me ask you a question. So right now in the AFC, we have a final spot available. Okay. And the reason I say it's only one spot, because I do believe the Texans and the Colts are going to make it. Okay. So that leaves just one more seed. Is going to probably end up being the 7th seed. You have the Steelers and Browns currently right now at 7-5. They have the same record as the Texans and the Colts, but let's be real, Texans and Colts are playing much better football. They have less injuries. I understand, Minshew is playing quarterback for Indy. He is their backup, but Minshew has a lot of starting experience. He's a very capable quarterback, as he has been proving since they've been winning. So you have the Steelers and you have the Browns at 7-5. Then you have the Broncos and the Bills at 6-6. Which one of those four teams do you believe right now will end up being that seventh seed?
Right now, the way that
It's tough, huh? That's a tough pick.
it's tough. I think that the Bills, with as inconsistent as they've been, and they have two very, very, very losable games. Three losable games coming up. They got the Chiefs, the Cowboys, back-to-back weeks coming up, and then they close out against the Dolphins. I
Oh,
could
yeah.
see them. I could see them losing all three of those games. They're sitting at 6-6 right now. They could finish 8-9.
Yeah.
Their other two games are the Chargers on the road in LA, and then the Patriots.
Yeah, the problem is they just lost so many. It's kind of like the Eagles. They've lost so much stuff on that defense that the defense went from elite at the beginning of the year to just the most average defense you're going to see. In fact, I would actually put them at below average at
They're
this.
sitting as the 11th seed right now in the AFC.
Yeah, so when you look at each of these four teams, you see struggles with all four of them, right? So the Steelers, like the offense woes, the quarterback situation, who's going to be it? The Browns, they have no quarterback either. They have injuries now on the defense. That defense did not look very good against the Rams. And then you have the Bills, who have injuries and they just can't seem to stop beating themselves. You know, and then you have the Broncos, who went into this week looking real good, and then they had the opportunity to beat the Texans, and they didn't. But with everything that's going on, I just feel like right now the Broncos are probably playing the most consistent football of all four of these teams, and
And I think they have the easier schedule.
they do well
Now,
outside the Lions. They don't. The other four teams, I understand, like 3 out of 4 of them are divisional foes, but
they're all losing records.
yeah, they all have losing records. So they have 3 of 5 are on the road. We're gonna find out if they can beat the Chargers, lose to the Lions. Then you finish the season 2 or 3 at home. You're gonna beat the Pats. I can see them beating the Chargers at home, and then we'll see what the last week brings as far as if the Raiders are still playing at that high caliber level that they've been playing at with their new interim coach, or if they kind of just maybe start putting in some younger guys and start seeing what they have for the future. Because I don't think they're going to end up making the playoffs.
Do you have Cleveland going 2-3 or 3-2 in their last 5?
Yeah.
Jaguars, Bears, Texans, Jets, Bengals.
Texans are losing to the Bears. It's weird. The Bears, like, one week their offense looks great, the next week it looks like shit. They're just one of those inconsistent teams that, like, you don't know what team's going to show up. The competitive one or the one that's going to roll over and let you put 46 on them. The problem with the Jags is Lawrence going to miss time
because that's their next game. That's next
Yeah.
week's game
Is it in Jacksonville or in Cleveland?
in Cleveland.
We're gonna have to also see if Denzel Ward is going to be back for. And don't forget Christian Kirk. He on that first play hurt his hamstring, or not his hamstring. I think it was his groin. So if the Jags are out, Christian Kirk and Trevor Lawrence,
Browns should win.
Browns could pull up that upset. If the Jags end up getting Lawrence and Kirk to play in that game, I could see the Jags definitely winning that game. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But you never really made your pick. I picked the Broncos. Who'd you pick?
Which of those 4 to be in?
Yeah, Steelers, Browns, Broncos, Bills.
Steelers. I'm gonna say Steelers are out. Broncos, Browns, and Bills. It's Broncos or Browns.
Broncos or Browns. You got to pick, man. People want to know.
I'm gonna say based off of who they play, I'm gonna say Broncos.
Broncos. Okay, so we both got the Broncos now.
Cleveland has a game up on the Broncos.
But again, they just don't have they don't have a good quarterback situation. Like the defense has some injuries. They can be beat, as the Rams just showed this last week. In LA, they put what 33 up on them.
36.
36.
Yeah, Stafford went 279 and 3 touchdowns. Kyron Williams had another 88 rushing.
Which now we can use this to go ahead and the last thing I want to talk about now is the NFC race. The NFC race now, I want to say about 2 weeks ago, it really didn't look like a race. It almost just looked like we knew who was going to go into the playoffs. Vikings now, all of a sudden, I mean, yeah, they're going to get Justin Jefferson back, but Dobbs you cannot throw 4 touchdowns and then the following week say, okay, this guy's going to take us to the promised land. Now it's like, okay, what are the Vikings? Was that just a really bad game on Dobbs? Did some people feel, did they see some tape? Is he going to have a good rapport with Justin Jefferson? Who knows? So the Vikings, I don't know. Packers are playing very, very well. Jordan Love, I think his last 3 games has 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. But he also did that at the beginning of the year too. Then he had some skid marks here through the middle of the season, and now he's starting to look like the Jordan Love at the beginning of the year.
Well, you go and you look at the records of the AFC versus NFC. AFC, I mean, it's a step all the way down. There's no jump. You go look at the NFC. There's a 3-game difference once you get outside. I'm going to say the top 4 teams. Granted, currently Dallas sits as the 5 seed only because Atlanta being 6-6 is winning their division. But outside the top 4 teams, there's a 3-game separation.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, Atlanta leads their division at 6-6. Originally I had picked the Saints, but it just seemed like the Saints they're falling apart. But
that division is still completely up in the air.
It is.
Aside from Carolina, who now is mathematically eliminated after the loss this week, Atlanta's 6-6, Tampa Bay 5-7, and New Orleans is 5-7.
So both the Falcons and the Bucs still have. They actually play each other this upcoming week. So if Atlanta wins, they're going to pull 2 games ahead of the Bucs. If the Bucs win,
and that would put Atlanta 4-0 in the division.
Yeah. So this is what it leaves. Now the Bucs have probably a much harder schedule after they play Atlanta. They play at Green Bay. They play home against the Jaguars. They play home against New Orleans. Then they play Carolina. Okay, so they have 2 teams right now. They have the Jags that are going to be in the playoffs, and they're going to be playing a much better, improved Green Bay team that's going to be really fighting for the playoff spot. The Falcons play the following now. If they beat the Bucs, this is why it's very important. If Atlanta beats the Bucs, they move to 7-6. Then they play Carolina. They could be 8-6, and looking okay. Then they play Indianapolis. Then they play and they finish off the year at Chicago, at New Orleans. So each team, I mean, I would say that the Falcons have a much better schedule with the way it's set up, but they're going to need to beat the Bucs. If they don't beat the Bucs this week, I put it as a coin flip. But as for the rest of the NFC, Mike, Vikings, Packers, Rams, Seahawks, 6-6. There's going to be 2 spots open. There's going to be 2 spots open for these teams. Actually, wait, 3. I'm wrong, 3, right?
Well, Scott, so you also didn't talk about the Saints' final 5 games. They don't play a team with a winning record right now.
It doesn't matter. They're not. I don't give a shit who the Saints are playing right now. The reason I took them out is it's just, how can you trust the Saints right now? I think in that division, I trust Atlanta and the Buccaneers at this point right now more than I trust the Saints. They're just finding ways to lose. They are finding ways to lose regardless. So I just can't. I can't trust I just can't. I'm out on the Saints. You can be in on the Saints, but I'm out on the Saints. It's going to come down to the wire between the Bucs and Falcons.
Well, what Saints are going to have against them is the division record. They're 1-2 right now in the division.
What, the Saints? Yeah, but they do play the
Tampa Bay's 2-1, and Falcons are 3-0. So,
well, there you go. The tiebreaker is
the
also
tiebreaker is going to go against
Falcons.
them.
So if the Falcons win this week against the Bucks, they move to 4-0 in their division. They're going to have a 2-game lead, as far as like at least over the Falcons. But technically, they have a 2-game. It's actually kind of a 3-game lead because they can't tie because they're going to have the better divisional record. So as of right now, I think you're going to have to lean towards the Falcons, right?
It'll get real interesting if Tampa Bay wins this week, though.
Real interesting, yeah,
because they will both be 6-7, and they will both be 3-1 in the division.
Yep, and like I said, they both play Saints and they both play Carolina, so they both have opportunities for 2 wins in the division. So keep an eye on that. It's going to be interesting, but you're going to have 2 spots open for the Vikings, Packers, Rams, Seahawks. I'm having a really hard time making this pick. Originally, I thought it was going to be the Seahawks, but they got to go to San Francisco, play a super hot team.
Seahawks have a tough remaining schedule.
Yep. The Rams, they still have to play the Niners one more time. And in fact, don't the Rams and Seahawks play each other one more time?
No. Rams play the Niners and the Ravens.
Ooh, that's tough. So, and then you have the Vikings and Packers. I think with the way how hot Packers are, ooh, nice screen. I'm gonna go with the Packers and Rams to take the last 2 spots. Packers and Rams. Who you got to finish off?
I would agree with that. Looking at who the Vikings have left, they got the Raiders, the Bengals, the Lions, the Packers, the Lions.
See, they got 3 tough divisional matches
to close the season.
Yeah, you see, and that could completely wipe them off from the playoffs. I mean, they could easily lose all 3 of those games. So again, I got the Packers, Rams. My best bet is Packers will be 6 seed, Rams will be 7 seed, and it'll be the Rams going against. Either you're going to have they're either going to have to play the Eagles, the Cowboys, or the Niners week 1 of playoffs. So, see how that goes. But
I mean, technically, it could be Detroit too that they play.
Yeah, I mean, well,
it's not likely.
Yeah,
but it's possible.
Yeah. So, you got anything else you want to add, or you feel pretty good?
No.
Yeah, I feel pretty good too. So, okay. Well, thank you for joining us on this nice little Monday night recording. This will drop Tuesday, and we will record again Thursday and drop another video for you Friday previewing week 14. So, again, thanks for joining. Please subscribe, and we will see you on the next one.